Scientists reconstruct the face of a Neanderthal dating back 75,000 years. This is a glance into the past. This is what the reconstructed face looks like. The face of a Neanderthal woman has been painstakingly recreated from skull fragments found in Kurdistan. Faye Bound Alberti says, from a flaky skull found as flat as a pizza on a cave floor in northern Iraq, the face of a 75,000-year-old Neanderthal woman named Shanidar Z, and this is her right here. Notice they all had very short foreheads. Anyway, Shanidar Z has been reconstructed with her calm and considered expression. Shanidar Z looks like a thoughtful, approachable, even kindly middle-aged woman. She is a far cry from the snarling, animalistic stereotype of the Neanderthal first created in 1908 after the discovery of the old man of La Chapelle. On the basis of the old man and the first relatively complete skeleton of its kind to be found, scientists made a series of presumptions about Neanderthal character. They believe Neanderthals to have a low, receding forehead, protruding mid-face and heavy brow, representing a baseness and stupidity found among lower races, quote-unquote. These presumptions were influenced by prevailing ideas about the scientific measurement of skulls and racial hierarchy, ideas now debunked as racist. This reconstruction set the scene for understanding Neanderthals for decades and indicated how far modern humans had come. By contrast, this newest facial reconstruction, based on research at the University of Cambridge, invites us to empathize and see the story of Neanderthals as part of a broader human history. Quote, I think she can help us connect with who they were, and quote, said paleoarchaeologist Emma Pomeroy, a member of the Cambridge team behind the research, while speaking in a new Netflix documentary, Secrets of the Neanderthal. The documentary delves into the mystery surrounding the Neanderthals and what their fossil record tells us about their lives and disappearance. It was not paleoanthropologists, however, who created Shanidar Z, but well-known paleo artists Kenneth, who sculpted a modern human face with their recognizable sensibility and expressions. This drive towards historical facial reconstruction, which invokes emotional connection, is increasingly commonplace through 3D technologies and will become more so with generative AI. As a historian of emotion and the human face, I can tell you there is more art than science at work here. Indeed, it is a good art, but questionable history. Technologies like DNA testing, 3D scans, and CT imaging help artists to generate faces like Shanidar Z's, creating a naturalistic and accessible way of viewing people from the past. But we should not underestimate the importance of subjective and creative interpretation and how it draws on contemporary presumptions as well as informing them. Faces are a product of culture and environment as much as skeletal structure, and Shanidar Z's face is largely based on guesswork. It's true that we can assert from the shape of the bones and the heavy brow, for instance, and here we can see that, the heavy brow, for instance, and the individual had a pronounced forehead or other baseline facial structures, but there's no scientific evidence about how that person's facial muscles, nerves, and fibers overlaid skeletal remains. Kenneth and Kenneth have attested to this themselves in the interview with The Guardian in 2018 about their practice. There are some things that the skull can't tell you, admits Andre Kenneth. You never know how much fat someone had around their eyes, or the thickness of their lips, or the exact position and shape of the nostrils. Well, there you go. Okay, we don't know. So that could change the face a lot, don't you think? It's an enormous imaginative and creative work to invent the skin color, forehead lines, or half smile. All these features suggest friendliness, accessibility, approachability, qualities of defining modern emotional communication. If we have to make a reconstruction, Andre Kenneth explains, we always want it to be a fascinating one, not some dull white dummy that's just come out of the shower. Overlaying skeletal remains with modern effect reasserts the recent re-envisioning of Neanderthal as just like us, rather than club-wielding thugs. Only in the past 20 years have Neanderthals been discovered to share modern human DNA, coinciding with the discovery of many similarities over differences. For instance, burial practices, caring of the sick, and a love of art. They had all this. Now, the reimaging of Neanderthal is historically and politically interesting because it draws on contemporary ideas about race and identity, but also because it recasts the popular narrative of human evolution in a way that prioritizes human creativity and compassion over disruption and extinction. The neglected history of the human race. It's the creativity and imagination that determines the friendly facial expression that marks and makes Shandazarzi sympathetic and relatable. We don't know what kind of facial expressions were used by or were meaningful to Neanderthals. Whether or not Neanderthals had the vocal range or hearing of modern humans is a matter of debate and would have dramatically influenced social communication through the face. None of this information can be deduced from a skull. Facial surgeon Daniel Seller told me about the cultural relevance of Shandazarzi. He said, as we age, we get crescentic creases, wrinkles around the dimple, and this changes the face, but there is no skeletal correlation to that, since facial expressions like smiling evolved with the need for social communication. Shandazarzi can be seen an example of overlaying contemporary ideas about soft tissue interacting on the bones rather than revealing any scientific method. This matters because there's a big problematic history of ascribing emotions, intelligence, civility, and values to some faces and not others. How we represent, imagine, and understand the faces of people, past and present, is a political as well as social activity. Historically, societies have made the faces of those they want to be connected to more emotionally empathetic. When cultures have determined, however, certain groups they don't want to connect to and in fact want to marginalize, we have seen grotesque and inhuman ideas and depictions rise around them. Take, for example, anti-black caricatures from Jim Crow era in the US, or cartoons of Jewish people made by Nazis. By representing this 75,000-year-old woman as a contemplative and kindly soul who we can relate to rather than a snarling, angry cipher, we're saying more about our need to rethink the past than any concrete fact about the emotional lives of the Neanderthals. There is nothing inherently wrong with artistically imagining the past, but we need to be clear about when that happens and what it is for. Otherwise, we ignore the complex power and meanings of the faces in history and in the present. Faye Bondi Alberti, professor in modern history and UKRI Future Leaders Fellow, King's College London. This is republished from the conversation here under Creative Commons. It's on Unexplained Mysteries. Please leave your comments and thank you for your support. Please support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.